I need a favor. Marcus, normally calm and collected, sounded anxious. I cradled the phone to my ear and responded, "Sure, man. What do you need? I'm taking a group up Pine Ridge tonight, but I need to bail. Can you cover for me?" Marcus and I were guides for Day Trekkers, a company that ran hiking trips out of the city. Our expeditions were favorites among city slickers who wanted to experience nature for no more than a few hours at a time. Recently, Day Trekkers had been promoting midnight hikes, post-sundown treks along easily navigable trails, usually accompanied by campfires and s'mores. I'd led a few groups up Bear Creek already, but so far Marcus had the monopoly on Pine Ridge. I'd never even led a daytime trip there. Oh man, you know I would if I could, but I'm leading the Bear Creek hike again tonight. Oh yeah, that's right. Listen, I could take that one if you want to switch with me. I was confused. Don't they leave at the same time? I thought you said you had to bail. Well, yeah, it's just the Pine Ridge Trail. Marcus sighed, a low rush of air barely audible over the phone. Can't do that hike tonight. What do you mean? I just need a change of pace, you know. Marcus laughed, but his voice had an edge to it. Can't keep doing the same hike all the time. I guess. So, can you cover for me? I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling that Marcus wasn't telling me something. Still, I owed him for the many times he'd covered for me in a pinch, so I said, "Sure. Thanks, Owen. You're the man." I pulled up outside the 7-Eleven to a crash of thunder. The weather had started out dismal and only gotten worse. 2 of the group had already called to cancel, leaving only 7, 8, including myself. As I turned off the ignition, I spied the huddled group of 7 outside the sliding glass doors. "Sorry I'm late, guys," I yelled over the downpour as I threw the van doors open. The group crowded into the van, pulling off their wet rain gear and shaking drops of water out of their hair. "I'm Owen," I said, smiling. "And you must be the only brave souls in the city willing to go on a hike in this." I gestured to the torrential rain, and the group chuckled in unison. Anxious to get on the road, I rushed the group through quick introductions and passed out the waivers. Over the scratch of ballpoint pens, I thought back to Marcus's phone call. After I'd agreed to take over the Pine Ridge hike, we'd gone over the route together. Marcus assured me it was an easy hike. Actually, his exact words were, "My 2-year-old could do it." Still, I grilled him about the area as I pored over my trail map, my eyes roaming over the crisscrossing red lines. "You'll be starting from the park and ride on Route 87. See where the blue trail starts. Follow that all the way to Pine Lake. It's a straight shot." Marcus paused before adding, "Just one thing to look out for. You see where the red trail crosses the blue one just over a mile in?" I followed the line with my finger, stopping where the 2 paths met. "Yeah, I see it. It's easy to take a wrong turn in these woods. Keep an eye on the markers, and whatever you do, don't miss the turnoff for the blue trail." Marcus's voice dropped to a near whisper. "Do not go down the red trail." I shuddered at Marcus's warning, wondering what had him so nervous about the red trail. "Why not? What do you mean, why not? You'll never get back to the car if you follow the wrong trail, dumbass." His voice was back to his normal, cheery tone, and I dropped the subject. In the front seat of the van, surrounded by eager hikers, I shuddered again. The rain hit the windshield in a thundering cadence, and my heart raced to match it. "Get it together, Owen," I scolded myself. Putting on a winning smile, I turned around in my seat to face the group. "Once again, my name is Owen, I said as I collected the signed waivers. I've been working with day trekkers for almost a year now, and I've been hiking all over the world for practically my whole life. I'd decided not to tell them I'd never hiked this particular trail before. Tonight's trip is going to be a fairly easy one, as long as everyone brought their required gear. I ran down my mental checklist. Does everyone have water, snacks, a flashlight? Nods all around. I turned to Dave, who'd climbed into the passenger seat. All right, man, you're the DJ for the drive. Dave grinned and flipped the radio to a classic rock station, and I pulled out onto the road. We were off to Pine Ridge. I think we lucked out, I said as I pulled into the park and ride, staring up at the sky. Looks like the rain's stopping. Sure enough, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, and I could even see the darkening sky through patches in the clouds. The sun had already dipped behind the mountain, but if only the clouds would clear, the moon would be bright and big in the sky tonight. The group piled out into the parking lot. Kara, a college-aged chick with a shock of blonde hair, jumped out first, followed by her friend April, a pretty Asian girl. Dave, an IT tech in his late 20s, hopped clumsily out of the passenger seat. On the ride over, he'd revealed that this was his very first hike. Next out of the van was Mike and Elena, a cheery, middle-aged couple. They were on their third trip with day trekkers, they said, though this was their first trip up Pine Ridge. The sixth hiker was Monica, a shy, heavy-set woman who'd signed up for the hike along with a friend from work. That friend had canceled at the last minute on account of the rain, but Monica didn't seem discouraged. That just left Jordan, a quiet guy with a fiery red beard, who'd only uttered a soft hello during the half-hour-long drive to the mountain. Mike and Elena stretched as Kara and April posed for pictures in front of the van. I pulled my back out of the back seat, grunting as I hoisted it over my shoulders. The bag was laden with a few pieces of firewood and 2 full water bottles. Okay guys, I need a volunteer. I have some pretty heavy things I need you to carry up to the lake for me. The hesitant looks turned to smiles as I pulled 2 bags of marshmallows out of the back. Mike and Elena each threw a bag into their packs, and Monica grabbed the graham crackers and chocolate. We set off across the damp grass towards the beginning of the trail. I could see 3 blue markers on a large tree trunk. I stopped the group in front of the tree. We're staying on this path. I tapped the tree with my hand. The blue path tonight, all the way to the lake. As your guide, I'll be up front the whole time following the trail, but you should still learn to read the markers. I pulled out my flashlight and aimed it at the blue rectangles. They shone brightly in the light. I gave the hikers a rundown on the shapes and symbols used to mark the trails in the area, and what each one meant. I see the next one, Dave shouted. His flashlight beam glinted off a small blue marker a little ways down the trail. Excellent. Then that's where we're headed. The 8 of us set off into the forest with darkness fast approaching. Our flashlights had come out about 10 minutes into the hike, once twilight had decidedly turned into night. I'd equipped my headlamp, and I glanced back every now and then to make sure the group was keeping up. Sure enough, each time I counted 7 bouncing lights in a line behind me. Once everyone had crossed the bridge, we stopped for a water break. Despite the chilly night air, I stripped off my jacket, and the rest of the hikers followed suit. Nothing like some good hiking to get the blood pumping. Does anyone know where we go from here? I asked. The path was clear, but I wondered who'd been keeping an eye on the markers. Beams of light crisscrossed the night air as everyone tried to find the marker first. "There it is," Jordan said, speaking aloud for the first time in ages. "No, wait, that one's the wrong color." Surprised, I twisted my head to see where his light was pointing, but he'd already swung the beam further into the woods. I shone my own flashlight into the brush, but was only met with dark forest. "Jordan," I said, "what color marker did you see?" It looked red to me," he said. "I think." A slow chill crept its way up my spine. The red trail shouldn't be this close. Not yet. Marcus's words came back to me. "Do not go down the red trail." "Oh, I see the blue one," Kara cried. She pointed to the shining blue rectangle just a few yards from the red marker. "Excellent, Kara," I said, brushing off the sense of unease that had wormed its way into my mind. "We're about a third of the way to the lake, guys. You're doing great. Let's keep up a good pace." Kara saw it first. I had my head down, watching my step among the slippery rocks, when she said, "That means turn right, doesn't it?" "There," she said, pointing to the tree I'd just passed. 2 sets of markers adorned the bark, red leading to the left and blue leading sharply to the right. I'd almost headed left down the red trail. I froze in my tracks. "You're right. Good catch," I said, distracted. I was staring down the dark path ahead, my hands balled into fists. "You would have walked right by it," Kara laughed. "We would have never made it to the lake." "Uh-huh." My breath billowed in the cold. Something seemed off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Marcus's vague warning was getting to me. That was all. He probably didn't even mean anything by it. I shook my head, trying to clear away the fear that was creeping its way into the back of my mind. It was as I turned my head, side to side, the headlamp's beam dancing its way across the forest, that I realized what was amiss. No light reflected back off the trail ahead. My faithful headlamp that could light the deepest forest on the darkest night wasn't even penetrating the darkness before me. I could see the path a few feet ahead, and a few bushes and trees surrounding it. But past that, nothing. Blackness. A hole in the world. "What's at the end of the red trail?" Kara was asking, I think, for the second time. She'd already started down the blue trail, but was looking back at me curiously. I tore my gaze away and caught up to her. 7 dancing lights followed me up and away from the eerie blackness. "I don't know." "Wow, oh, wow." Kara looked up in awe. "Just, wow." Monica put her amazement into words. "I haven't seen a sky like that in ages. Look at all those stars." The sky had cleared completely by the time we made it out of the woods, and with the moon shining in all its splendor, even I had to admit it was an incredible sight. I nearly gasped when we made it over the rise, and the lake came into view. The water glittered in the moonlight, and the mountain range in the distance was patterned with spectacular shades of black. "Nothing beats this kind of view," Elena said appreciatively. She and Mike stood arm in arm by the still water, admiring the vista. I unloaded the firewood from my pack and went about starting a campfire. Kara and April offered a hand, and with the help of a bottle of lighter fluid, we had a roaring fire in minutes. The group growed into light once the bags of marshmallows came out, and soon our mouths were stuffed with s'mores. Dave tried leading everyone in a half-hearted campfire song, but no one made it past the first verse before trailing off into silence. It was a nice silence, though, a moment of calm away from the madness of the city. I was actually a little surprised by how still the lakeside was. During my trips up Bear Creek, we'd always run across at least one group out hiking or camping. Here, we seemed to be the only people on the mountain. I glanced at my watch. "Check it out, guys. It's midnight in 3, 2, 1. They chorused, and then erupted in loud cheers. The whoops and shouts echoed across the lake, bouncing back in mock reply, before fading into silence. Step and step and step and step and step and look back. 3, 4, 5, 7 dancing lights met my gaze. Everyone's here. And I turned back around. Step and step and step. The way back was quieter. The hikers' stomachs were full of s'mores, and the cold had set in a little firmer. I kept my head down, watching my feet as we crossed rocky terrain, my footsteps keeping time more diligently than my watch. Step and step and step. Look back. I counted the 7 beams of light once again and resumed my progress. There was something so calming about hiking at night. The air smelled cool and earthy from the recent rain, and the forest was soundless, save for the wet crackle of leaves under our feet. Even the way our headlamps and flashlights swept across the forest floor was soothing. Long shadows angled across the path as the 8 separate beams of light mingled with one another. My headlamp flickered. I groaned to myself, hoping I'd thrown spare batteries into my pack. I had. It wouldn't go out just yet. I had plenty of time. The path was getting rockier. It looked more overgrown than I remembered on the way here, like the woods was trying to reclaim the trail. Actually, it looked a lot different than I remembered. I whipped my head up, glancing left and right in search of a blue marker. Through the dense underbrush, I spotted a shining rectangle. Red. I stopped dead in my tracks, staring hard at the red marker, hoping to make out a blue one on the same tree trunk, or at least nearby. Unfortunately, no amount of staring made a blue marker appear. Footsteps approached behind me as the group caught up. "Whoops," I said. "I think we made a wrong turn back there." Silence. Someone, Kara most likely, stopped beside me, her footsteps soft on the wet leaves. She must have lost her footing, because a second later, I felt a light touch on my back, an unsteady hand grasping me for support. Trying to stay focused, I peered straight ahead, looking deep into the brush. Anyone see a blue marker anywhere? Again, I was met with silence. "Any?" My words caught in my throat as I spun around. I saw my group, my 7 lights behind me, but the closest was still a few yards away. I recognized Kara's blonde hair as she jogged to my side. My back still tingled where, moments ago, that small hand had rested so lightly against it. "Jeez," Kara panted, resting her hands on her thighs. "You're hard to keep up with." Thankfully, the glare of my headlamp kept her from seeing the fear on my face. Still, my voice wavered as I said, "I thought you were right behind me." Someone was right behind me, I wanted to say, but I held my tongue. I glanced nervously into the trees, searching for whoever had been standing by me not even a minute ago. "I think we made a wrong turn somewhere along the way," I said again, pointing to the red rectangle. Kara peered into the darkness and laughed. "'Cause I wasn't there to stop you again," she teased. I managed a half-hearted chuckle. "Keep an eye out for a blue marker," I called out to the group as they caught up. We must have passed the fork in the road a little ways back. Flashlight beams flared out at all angles as we searched. The group fanned out in different directions. "Or, if you see another red one, we can follow that back to the blue trail," I said. I stepped closer to the one red marker I could see and turned around, knowing that another marker should be visible from that one. I panned my light back and forth, hoping to glimpse a gleam from out of the darkness. Could that be it? A small glint of light reflected back at me. It wasn't where I thought the path should be, though, and I couldn't even tell what color it was. But something was shining back at me from the forest, a shimmering pinpoint of light. I cautiously moved forward. My headlamp flickered again, this time going dark for a full half-second. The mysterious light wavered, but didn't go out. "Found it!" Jordan's voice echoed through the trees in the opposite direction of where I was looking. I glanced over my shoulder and saw my hiker's 7 lights gathering together about 40 feet from where I was standing. Before heading back to the group, I glanced back at the strange light. It was gone. A chill, unrelated to the cold night air, flooded my veins. I rushed back to the group without looking back. Jordan looked smug as he pointed to the tree trunk. Blue to the left, red to the right. I clapped him on the shoulder. "Awesome work, man. Should have had you in the lead this time." Disappointed. That was the word. I was disappointed with myself. How many times had I been out in the woods at night? I didn't even know the answer to that, but I knew it was a lot. And I'd never, ever been freaked out before. And yet, something about that mistaken detour had my hair standing on end. Jordan had gotten us back to the blue trail just fine, and I'd kept a wary eye on the markers ever since. But I was beyond ready to be out of these woods for good. Step and step and step and step. The same mantra as before, only faster. My feet scrambled over rocks and through mud, trying to keep up with my steady chant. Step and step and step. Look back. I tried not to trip over the rocks as I counted the dancing lights behind me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My boots skidded on a slick boulder, but I regained balance. 6, 7, 8. 8. I whispered aloud, chiding myself for miscounting. I paused for a moment to catch my breath and again tallied the lights behind me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My heart skipped a beat. The group was spread thin along the path, but there was no mistaking it. There in the distance was an additional light. Kara was the front runner of the group again, and she unslung her backpack as she caught up. "Water break." I nodded dumbly, not really hearing what she'd said. All of my senses were focused on the 8th light. The final light in line hung back from the group, but was slowly and surely making its way down the path towards us. "It's just another hiker," a small voice of reason spoke up within me. A less welcome voice answered. There was no one else up at the lake. There weren't even any other cars in the parking lot. We're alone on this mountain. "So what are you saying, Owen?" I whispered to myself. Kara raised an eyebrow. "Nothing. Put your water away. We have to go." Kara might have been shocked by my clipped tone, but that was the least of my worries. I could see Mike and Elena closing in, and if everyone stopped for a rest, well, I wasn't ready to find out what would happen when the 8th light caught up. I started down the mountain again, with mild cries of protest from an exhausted Mike and Elena behind me. "We're almost there," I lied. "We can rest in the van." I was practically jogging, wet leaves dragging across my face as I sped through the trees. My step-and-step mantra was replaced by "Get to the van, get to the van, get to the van." My mind was racing faster than my feet, and by the time I hit the first bridge, I swore I could hear my name whistling through the trees. Owen! No, I wasn't imagining it. Kara's voice called from behind me. Owen! I didn't slow down. I couldn't. Fear fueled my muscles, keeping me going. I glanced back again, terrified of seeing the eighth light. But this time I could barely even see the lights at all. I'd abandoned my hikers, but somehow I couldn't bring myself to feel anything but fear. With the darkness of the forest pressing in around me, I ran on, led by my headlamp, my own personal talisman. With a flicker and an apologetic click, my headlamp went out. The moonlight wasn't strong enough to break through the trees and warn me of the slanted rock ahead. My foot hit it at a hard angle, and I fell to the ground. Gasping, I clutched my ankle, rocking side to side on the damp, cold earth. Owen! Kara came into view, her flashlight beam bouncing along the ground until it landed on me. What happened? She sounded more frustrated than concerned. Light went out. I managed to hiss through gritted teeth. I worked my ankle in a full circle, touching it gingerly. Not broken. I hurried to my feet, despite the pain, and swung my backpack around, tugging at the zipper. What are you doing? Sit back down, you're hurt. I need your light, I said. I have extra batteries in here somewhere. Kara handed me her flashlight, but she'd lost her patience. What's your problem? You left everyone behind. We're all beginners here. You can't expect us to go at your pace. I didn't know what to say. All I could think was, the light's getting closer. I kept fishing for my batteries, first in one pocket and then the other. I heard more voices approaching. It sounded like Mike and Elena were again the next in line. I was about to lose hope when my fingers closed around two tiny cylinders. I almost cried in relief, pulling my headlamp off my head. I handed the flashlight back to Kara. Shine this over here. Why? So you can fix your light and take off again. You know, we all paid a lot of money to go on a hike, not to get ditched in the woods. Despite her anger, Kara held the light steady for me. With shaking hands, I opened the battery case and pulled out the old ones, dropping them in my pack. Kara was ranting as she looked back at the approaching group. Dave even said he'd never been on a hike before, and you heard how much trouble he was having on the way to the lake. And April already fell once. You didn't even know that, did you? Monica and Jordan. She trailed off, staring at the dancing lights behind us. I could hear her counting to herself, under her breath, and her eyes grew wide. 8, she breathed. Kara turned back to me as if in slow motion, cocking her head in confusion. Weren't there only... I nodded, no longer trying to mask the fear written plainly on my face. Kara sucked in her breath, and the flashlight shook as her hands began to tremble. The wind picked up, sending the leaves into a frenzy. I'd placed one battery in the slot, but the second slipped out of my shaking fingers. No, I looked at Kara in terror, then down at the ground. Without a word, we dropped to our hands and knees, sifting through the dead leaves for the battery. Mike and Elena arrived as we were searching. Mike said testily, "You were going at a pretty good clip there. Everything okay?" My mind was still focused on finding the battery, but Kara was quicker on her feet than I was. "Flash flood warning," she said. "Didn't you hear Owen say it back there?" I almost laughed. There was no way they'd buy that. The rain had stopped hours ago, and even so, there was no cell service on the mountain. Where would a warning have come from? "Oh dear," Elena said. "We'd better move quickly then." I breathed a sigh of relief. Keep heading that way. I pointed down the hill. And follow the markers. I'll meet you by the van. My fingers dug through the muck, coming up empty each time. I groaned in frustration. How hard could it be to find one battery? Kara held her flashlight in one hand and rummaged through the dirt with the other, her fingernails caked with black grime. Mike and Elena disappeared down the path just as April approached us. Go on ahead, Kara told her friend. There's a flash flood warning. We need to get off the mountain right away. Thanks, I muttered to Kara as April passed. Why don't you share my flashlight? Kara whispered. I'll try to keep pace. That was the smart answer, of course, but I didn't feel safe without a light of my own. What if we got separated? I want to keep looking, at least till everyone's passed. Then I added, You can go if you want. Kara said nothing. She only shifted on her feet to search another area. The wind howled louder as the 4 remaining lights drew nearer, swaying ominously in the darkness. Jordan was the next to arrive, helping a sheepish-looking Monica along the rocky path. He took the news of a flash flood warning without batting an eye, and the 2 continued on down the hill. Dave followed soon after, huffing and puffing as he stumbled by. At least I'm not in last place, he joked, gesturing to the light behind him. Kara and I paled, but Dave continued on, unaware of the danger that lurked behind him. As soon as Dave was out of earshot, Kara grabbed my arm. Let's go, she pleaded. I shook my head. It has to be here. I dropped it right here. Owen, come on. She tugged at my arm. We have to go now. I ran my hands across the ground frantically. Just another minute. We don't have another minute. Kara stood up, her breath coming in gasps. The 8th light shone through the trees just up the path, sending shadows across her face. Owen, it's coming. Go, I shouted. I regretted the word as soon as it was out of my mouth. Kara bolted, and as soon as she left, I was plunged into pitch darkness. Darkness broken only by the steadily advancing 8th light. Blood pounded in my ears, and it was all I could do not to look up right into the glow. Still, that couldn't stop me from seeing where the light cast its rays, creeping across the forest floor, moving more like a living thing than a flashlight's beam. My fingers scrambled blindly across the ground, searching desperately for the small metal cylinder, as if it were the last thing I'd ever do. My fingers touched metal, cold metal, the battery. In a flurry of leaves and dirt, I jumped to my feet just as the 8th light rounded the bend, shining straight at me in full force. I averted my eyes and broke into a run even before placing the battery in its case. No more than 20 feet down the path, I almost took another tumble on an unsteady rock. With the rest of my waning courage, I forced myself to slow to a brisk walk. Better than breaking a leg and not making it the rest of the way down the mountain. As long as I was faster than the light, I'd be okay. At least, that's what I told myself. And yet, I had no idea how fast the light was moving. It was impossible to tell from the shifting shadows, and there was no way I was going to turn around and check. All I knew was that it was behind me, and like Orpheus leading his love from Hades, I marched onward, staring dead ahead. With an unsettling jolt, I realized I could feel the light on me, like the warmth of a fresh sunburn. No more than that. It felt moist, like hot breath. I shifted uncomfortably, sliding my jacket up over my shoulders, and sped up the pace a little. My chant picked back up. Get to the van, get to the van, get to the van. I added in a few "I'm going to kill Marcus" and a couple words that I wouldn't have been able to repeat in front of the group. It took me a while to realize I'd been saying this out loud, in whispers that could have been screams if I'd only had the strength for it. I trudged on, the light to my back. It felt like a whole day had passed, or maybe a year. Later, my watch told me it was more like 15 minutes. But like all things good and bad, it came to an end. The sight of the van, parked under a single street light, was the single most beautiful thing I'd seen in my life. The group had all made it back all right and was crowded outside the van, eating the last of the graham crackers and Hershey bars. Only Kara had kept an unwavering eye on the entrance to the woods, and I met her gaze as I stepped out of the trees. I will never forget her face that night. At first, I thought she was looking right at me. My stomach dropped when I saw her skin turn white as a sheet, her mouth gape open in fright, and her eyes grow so wide I thought they'd never stop. Why is she looking at me like that? I thought. I'm sure I look like hell, but is it really that bad? Then I realized she was looking behind me. I never asked her what she saw come out of the forest that night. Whatever it was gone when I spun around. All I saw was darkness and shadows, and I was glad. Some things are best left in the woods. Marcus texted me as I was dropping the van off. How was the hike? I had a few choice words to say to Marcus, but I wasn't about to get into it by text. So I said nothing. A few minutes later, Marcus called. "You okay, Owen?" "I'm fine," I said tersely. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "So, how many people went out on the hike?" "7," I replied. Another pause. I swore I could practically hear Marcus thinking on the other end. It was ages before he responded, his words tense and deliberate. "How many more came back?"